What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with the Pound for Pound ATL Live. Joined as always by my co-host Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's up, brother?
Man, I would say it's a beautiful day, but
It is not.
ooh, I'm just hurt. I'm just maybe I'll wake up in the land of Oz tomorrow morning. We'll see
Phew,
how it
I'm
shakes out.
I'm hoping that I wake up with power tomorrow morning. As most of y'all know or are aware, there's a hurricane coming, and it just made landfall in Florida from the little notification that I got on my computer here. So it made landfall at a category 4, I believe is
Yep,
what it said.
that's what it was supposed to be at.
Right. So if we have any Florida listeners, man, y'all stay safe out there.
Absolutely.
Keep your head down. I mean, when a Waffle House is boarded up, you know you know it's getting real. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Because
yeah.
Waffle House don't close for nothing. Um,
No.
as y'all know, it's Thursday. It's not Tuesday. Um, we I was on Jekyll Island Tuesday, as a matter of fact, and taking a vacation, which we had a blast. Good time, great weather. But because of the weather, we actually did leave um Tuesday night. So we got back home about midnight on so you could say Wednesday morning, however you want to parse
Yeah.
that out. Um but so we got back in ahead of the rain, so that was good. Got all of our camping stuff put up. But yeah, we had a real good time. Little girl played on the beach, so that was a ton of fun. You know, did the most American thing ever. Saw a bald eagle. It was awesome. I was
There
like, hey,
you
I was like, look, it's America.
go. It is the physical manifestation of the U.S. of A.
There it is. But that led me to have to watch the Falcons game on a little tablet
Mhm.
on a campsite, which was interesting. I just rewatched it because it'd been a few days, so I wanted to get it fresh back in my mind. But that's what we got to get into tonight. We're going to talk about this Chiefs game, then talk about this upcoming New Orleans game. So, without much further ado, let's just get into it. All right. So we,
It's hate week.
yeah, yeah, big time. Like there's part of me that was like, all right, how much time do we actually spend talking about the Chiefs game? Because it is like we are full in hate week. I'm seeing all the great memes and it's the best rivalry in uh like pro football, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm a little biased. I mean, I'm sure there's some Eagles Cowboys fans that would beg to differ, but I think the New Orleans Falcons rivalry is much deeper, much stronger. I mean, you even got like first time players, Justin Simmons playing for the Falcons saying, uh, got to come out of there with a win, and which is encouraging. Like this first time here, and he already knows like we got to do this.
Yep. It's one of the like there are other rivalries in the NFL, but you don't get them quite as like you don't get quite as many as like college because you got so many more college teams, but
Right.
they're not quite as ingrained. Where I would say stuff like Eagles, Cowboys, Steelers, Ravens. Now, maybe back in the day it was Steelers, Browns. You
Yeah.
know, um, but and so there are those, and I think in that same category is well, the two teams have not had the success, the overall success
Hmm.
in franchise history that those other teams have had. I think the rivalry between Atlanta and New Orleans is just as deep, just as at least from a fan perspective, players. I mean, obviously they understand it, but they and maybe back in the day, uh, there was an issue with like the players hating each other, like legitimately hating each other. I don't think players hate each other these days, but uh, the just the we call it hate week for a reason.
Right.
You know,
To me, it's like heck, that both teams being so bad as they were back in the past, almost like fueled it even more. Because like you're just hating on each other for just cuz, in a sense.
Yeah,
Now, obviously, New Orleans got their Super Bowl with Drew Brees, which has given them a leg up, so to speak, in the crap talking department
but
over the past few years.
but
Hmm.
right now the overall series is tied
Ooh.
as far as wins and losses between the two teams. If New Orleans wins this Sunday, they will be one up on us, and it will be the first time they will be the leader in that in this rivalry since 1967 at one.
Shoot. Even more so. Even more so. Well, before we go dive too much more into that, let's talk about this game that took place on Sunday
Yep.
against the two-time Super Bowl champs who are looking for that three-peat, the Kansas City Chiefs, the current NFL Golden Boy, Patrick Mahomes, and um Swifty connoisseur Travis Kelsey
Yeah.
came into town and brought their besties with them, and I'm not talking about Taylor Swift. I'm talking about the ones in the stripes.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
I told some folks at church, you can't ever let the refs, like, you can't let the refs win the game, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
for you. But it is hard when you're having to fight the refs and the opposing team.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that obviously I'm referring to the no pass interference to Kyle Pitts, and it wasn't just that. There was one that was on Drake London as well.
Oh yeah.
That could have been called. So we got a few calls that helps us out in extended drives. So I say I make the ref thing in jest, but it is tough when it is blatant, especially when you have Chris Collinsworth calling it out. He doesn't ever call anything like in our favor, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a guy that's just like maybe sometimes, especially late in the game. Now I will say this: whether it's Collinsworth, I hear a lot of commentators throughout throughout the weekend that will watch a game, and then if you get into a tight game at the end of the game, everybody's trying to make a play and all this other stuff, and they get called for DPI or they get called for defensive holding or something like that, and they go and watch the replay. They're just kind of like, eh, like I don't know, it's very ticky tack kind of. You hear that all the time, and I've heard Collinsworth say the same things. But to come out and basically be like, no, that was flat out DPI, period. And now, granted, what I'll say is, we do get the benefit, right? We get the benefit of the replay. We
Of
get
course.
slow down. We get all these things. Uh, do I think they legitimately looked at it and said, "Oh, that's DPI," but it's the Chiefs. I can't throw the flag. No,
I highly doubt that. Like, in all seriousness,
yeah,
we like to make the jokes, and every fan base thinks that the refs are
yeah.
like out to get them. Um, and it's magnified more with the Chiefs because they're the ones right now that are currently dominating the NFL. So the entire NFL is like wanting to hate on the Chiefs because they're the new dynasty, which is totally understandable, totally acceptable. Um, but yeah, but there's part of me that kind of agrees with what Emmanuel says here. You got a 6'6" tight end, like throw it up a little higher, But
Yeah.
at least this point, and I'm wearing the shirt for a reason. I'm starting to. We're only 3 games into the season, and I get it. He like last 2 years hasn't had a consistent quarterback, but I'm really starting to like, where's that Kyle Pitts that you saw in college? Like he doesn't seem to climb that ladder. And you can say, oh, well, these guys are throwing it low or whatever. But even when he has the opportunity, like he doesn't seem to go up and get the ball. Um,
Well, now that particular play, Kirk Cousins has already come out and said, like, if he could have that play back, he would definitely throw it higher.
oh, I'm sure.
Uh,
I'm sure.
like if he throws that, helmet high, that's a touchdown. You know, but it's one of those situations where, um, you know, he's still coming to grips with the offense, still coming to grips with his players, still coming to grips with just getting everything down like to where it's just ingrained, and yeah, it's a situation where the next time he has a chance to throw that kind of pass, maybe he throws it up, and then if Pitts brings it down, then he has more confidence to do that, and at some
Right.
point he's just going to be like, anytime Pitts is going down the seam, if he's one on one with a guy, I'm tossing it up, letting him see if he can go get it.
I'll say this, that big, the long completion of Pitts was, a nice play design. Then through these 3 games, you're seeing, obviously Kirk get a little bit more comfortable each game. Um, so I'm really excited to see like what mid-season, tail end of the season, offensively looks like, because there have been some brief glimpses like that opening drive against the Chiefs where we went right down the field,
Oh
and you
yeah,
got um, you got the cross up between, with Bijan and Drake, where they switched and totally confused the defensive backs to have Drake standing in the end zone. That's 2 weeks in a row that you've had, or not 2 weeks, but 2 times this year that you've had 2 of your big playmakers standing in the end zone completely by themselves.
yep,
So,
yep.
like, when was I can't think of a time in recent memory where we've had that happen.
Yeah,
So,
and you just got to have that offense stress the defense,
right,
make them have to play, if not perfect, then pretty near
right.
perfect to actually defend you. And if they mess up in any small way,
You
you're
got
there to you got to take advantage of
right. All right. So Willie's gonna kick us off. Now y'all gonna have to forgive me. I did not have time today to make our ballers and fallers graphic. So we're gonna do this um El Naturel, I
it.
guess is
Appreciate it,
how I'm gonna
Willie.
say it. Thank you, Willie, for $5. He says his ballers are the safeties, Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates. Totally agree there.
Yep.
Simmons looked really good. Bates looked really good. Fallers, tight ends. I don't know. Like, I don't know if
Maybe
I saw anything that really constituted a faller for me. Um,
it's really more so we're seeing what we thought, kind of what we maybe thought we might see with regards to this offense, and that is that if you go look at the Rams, like they don't
they
use a tight end as far as they don't use a tight end as far as going out and passing, and they don't tend to be primary targets.
right,
Um, granted, Zach Robinson comes in, we have a really high value, or we picked him really high in the draft, but that's not a guy that he said, "Hey, we need to go get this guy." It's not on him that we got this guy. So he's just running his offense, and whether or not at some points they scheme, they have plays dedicated to trying to get it to Kyle Pitts. I don't know,
to me,
or he's
that's
just in the progression or
right.
whatever.
Like, that's something that, like, hopefully as the season progresses, we get better at that. Honorable mention: the wide receivers. Side eye glance, coaching, still optimistic. Got to beat New Orleans. Um, I'll say this: like, if I had to pick, like, after rewatching the game, because I was sitting there thinking about the fallers and ballers, and I was like, nobody really stood out to me as far as a faller is concerned, other than you know, um, Emmanuel Brown says the D line and linebackers stopping the run. That was a little concerning in this particular game.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say this: the baller, I would say, would be the defensive secondary played really well against what can be at times a high powered, overwhelming Kansas City offense.
Yeah,
The secondary played really well, really forced them to run the ball. And my faller would actually be our running game. Because they were ready for that outside zone. And now, granted, I know we had 2 offensive linemen go down, and that doesn't help. But even before they went down, the run game wasn't necessarily anything to like write home about. And I think what made the Philly game work as well as it did is our run game was able to rip off some chunks. So
Yeah.
I think that's got to be a higher priority, um, is to figure out this run game, because that's still kind of the engine to this offense. So what was your ballers and fallers?
I'm gonna give two ballers. One is kind of a jokey one. One
Okay.
is Nathan Landman. Nate Landman. I really want him back in this defense. I think he makes this defense super, um, just much better.
Mhm.
Because I think it allows you to do, like we talked about this before the show. He allows you to do things with Caden Ellis that you kind of can't do when he's not in the
Right.
line. I would almost maybe want to see a little bit more of JD Bertrand, because I think he's a little more instinctual, and maybe is a guy that like will shoot some of the gap, or shoot some of the uh the on running plays. I can't think of the term right now, but he'll shoot the gap in that running game a little bit more. Whereas I see you know Troy Anderson still like got a little bit of a hesitation in the run game, where he's tackling guys 3-4 yards down the field. It's instead of trying to meet him in the hole.
Mhm.
Um, and things like that. So maybe, but then again, maybe it was just because of the Chiefs. Now, grant the Chiefs' interior, especially the interior offensive line, all three of those guys are real good,
Oh yeah.
real good.
Yeah. Their
So
center is one of the best in the league. And both those guards play really well. I
yeah,
don't know.
and I mean,
I actually thought he had a decent game.
like that's the thing. Like Bradley's saying, AK for sure, but he didn't get a sack, but nobody else got a sack either. It wasn't like everybody else was feasting and he was still just kind of like, eh.
I mean,
Nobody else could get
he
like.
got a good
Well,
pressure on him, and so did Lorenzo, and so did Judons. I mean, they were
yeah,
getting pressure. The defense overall, like the biggest problem I had with the defense was, um, they had almost a 50% third down efficiency rate. They gave up, they got them into 14 third downs, and they gave up almost like they gave up six. It's like you gotta to we only converted 2 third downs. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like we forced the Chiefs to get into long drives, and that's fine. Other than it ate up clock, they had the ball almost 10 minutes more than we did,
Yep.
which is part of a factor when you get into the fourth quarter.
Now, what
You
I'll
know,
say is the defense actually looked the best to me in that fourth quarter. Like they actually were able to do more. They were able to stop third down, like get off the field on a more consistent basis. So weirdly, yes, they were playing a lot of snaps. Yes, they were playing a lot of minutes. But I feel like the end of that game, they were like, they were playing better than what I had seen, especially in the first half. The first half, it just seemed like it was a reminder to me of the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Like that first half, I was so worried about the second half of this game that because you look at that first half and it reminded me a lot of that Super Bowl, because in the first half of that Super Bowl we were up by a bunch of points,
mhm.
but that defense, the entire second quarter, the offense I think had one drive, and it was they weren't on the field for that long, and the rest of the time in that entire second quarter, the Patriots were just moving up and down the field. They just like either got a field goal or and then they had the pick six or whatever, but they were able to move up and down the field pretty easily, and we were like, I was looking at time of possession, and I'm like, oh my god, our defense is going to be gassed come fourth quarter, and that's exactly what happened. And so
Mhm.
I was so worried about that in the second half of this game, because we were, defense was just couldn't get off the field in the first half. And then it kind of started out the same way in the second half, but it got better as that game progressed in the second half. And then in the fourth quarter, I think they did a lot better, getting off the field late in that game, which that goes into kind of the scenario that occurred at the end of the game, uh, the reason why certain decisions were made and so forth. So,
Right. And so I'll say again, I keep trying to remind myself we're only talking about, third game of the season,
hmm,
which has turned in like we knew it was going to be like kind of a brutal opening slate. And you look at the three teams that we played, something you brought up pre-show, they're 8-1.
yep,
And that one is the loss to the Falcons by the Philadelphia Eagles.
yep,
So we have played, arguably some of the, better teams in the league so far, in the early part of the season, at least as far as like defensively for sure. And, we've been able to like hold our own and not get like ran off the field. Had you told me before the season started that, hey man, 3 games in, you're going to be 1-2, I'd have looked at it and be like, okay, yeah, we probably beat the Steelers, lose to Philly, lose to KC.
yep,
Like logically, that's what I would have looked at. Okay, so we sit here 3 games into the season, we're 1-2, and we beat Philly and lost to the Steelers,
yep.
who consequently,
You had it right the
English.
first time.
I think I did. Anyway, uh, Philly goes on the road and beats the Saints,
Yeah.
who started off the season really hot. So again, long way to
And
go.
we're looking at Pittsburgh, who's now after 3 games has the number one ranked defense in the NFL.
Exactly. And to so like, they're doing to the league what they did to us, so far. So it wasn't like an outlier.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and the other thing that I was worried about is in the past a game against the Falcons like this for Kansas City. I mean, you look at the first 2 games of the season for Kansas City, they've won, but like up to this point, Kelsey's kind of been a non-factor. He had like 40 total yards in the first 2 games. I think it might be like 39 or something like that. He's kind of just been a non-factor production wise, like his own production. I think he's being used kind of in a Julio Jones scenario where he's a guy that goes out and people's eyes are all over him,
mhm.
and so he draws attention away from other people. But if we're just talking, his production has been basically non-existent through the first 2 weeks. I was worried we were going to be the get right game for Travis Kelsey with our history of just being mauled by the really good tight ends of the league.
Yeah.
And he was still like, yeah, he had a few like what 3 or 4 catches I think
I
total.
mean, he had 30 yards.
Yeah,
He had Travis Kelsey had 4 catches for 30 yards. The one that hurt us was Rashee Rice.
yeah,
12 catches, 110 yards with a touchdown. We were able to bottle up Worthy, um, which gives me a little bit of confidence about dealing with some more explosive guys. It seemed like they weren't necessarily going to let him run all over him. Now Carson Steele with his like that tough run up the gut, that was like he was a tough runner.
yeah. But
So
again, I think our defense is more built around just like a lot of defenses are these days. They're built to more like contain the passing game, right?
mhm.
So and honestly, like if you look at that game, the way they game planned it was Mahomes throughout much of this game, like he was 3-step dropping and getting the ball out of his hands with a quickness.
I
He
mean,
was not
because
holding onto the ball.
he had 39 pass attempts for only 217 yards.
Yeah.
That
What,
tells you
what
that it
was the
was.
average?
It doesn't give me the average on at least this page. Um, but yeah, it was 26 completions for 39 attempts for 26 completions for 217 yards. It was a lot of dump it off, swing it out, which we were doing the same thing. Like I said, if I had any like real critique of the game plan and I understand the logic behind it, it was, the uh it was the consistent swings out to Darnell Mooney on the edge. You got it like once or twice, and you kind of just kept going back to that well, which I wish they would have. But you had Caleb McGarry go out, and you had Drew Dahlman go out, which Drew Dahlman's on IR, so he's out
Yep.
for the next 4 games,
At
um,
least.
at least. And Caleb McGarry looks like he might have, missed anything major. Like, because I when I saw that replay of Caleb McGarry, somebody asked it. I think it was either that night or later on or the next day, and made a statement. I was like, I thought to myself that you were going to miss Drew Dahlman for a couple games and McGarry was going to be out for the year because it almost looked like a non-contact injury.
Yeah.
Like it looked like he planted and then was like, oh God, and which tends to be your knee blew up, which
Mhm.
he dodged that bullet, thankfully enough. But the but like I said, now Dahlman, he's on IR for at least 4 games. So you're going to have Ryan Newsel, who played okay. Something I didn't know but that was brought up by Todd McClure on, I think it was these like Smitty Sports Machines, that conglomerate with him and Berto and A1 and all those guys.
Yeah.
They had Todd McClure on, and he brought up that Newsel is a left-handed snapper. Um,
Ooh.
so that could have been also some of the funkiness that you saw once Newsel came in. Um, so that's something that him and Cousins are going. I would expect that to look better against New Orleans after having a week of practice to get a little bit more familiar with each other.
Yep.
Storm Norton looked okay. They did give up 2 sacks, and Norton was called for just holding on for dear life against Chris Jones. Like he pushed that dude's helmet clean off his head.
Yeah.
But he was just doing everything he could there. But you got another like tall test with New Orleans coming to town. Like Carl Granderson's on a tear the
Yeah.
first part of this season, and Brian Breesy is also like I think they both tied with the amount of sacks they have currently. If
I'm
I'm not
not. I
mistaken.
mean, I'm not going to say that I'm not worried. I'm less worried about Breesy than I am about the edges. But even then, whether it's McGarry or Storm Norton, um, I'm thinking probably this week it's going to be Newsel in the center, obviously, and then you're going to have Storm Norton on the right side. I think, just because give his give his knee a little bit extra, like one more week. Like
Well,
whatever's going on, he couldn't come back into the game. Now, granted, if they say he's good and he feels good and he's ready to play, then let him play, and that's fine. And so they'll make that determination. But either one, McGarry or Storm Norton, I'd be okay with either on the right side.
mhm.
Um, like I feel like we're this close to the things really like I felt like things started to click at the end of the Philadelphia game. And then this game, I think like the offense, like they played well until he got to like some third and longs and things like that. Uh, but even then, I think they still played well for the most part. It's just that's a really good defense.
Mhm.
And they know, and Steve Spagnuolo is a really good defense, if not if not the best DC in the league right
He's definitely he's definitely one of the better DCs in the league,
now. Yeah,
and that's the thing is like you know with the Saints coming in, you know, they've been playing well the first 2 games. They kind of came back down to earth a little bit against the Eagles. I mean, their defense was able to sack Jalen Hurts 3 times. It looks,
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, yeah, no, 4 times. Because yeah, so they're able to sack him about 3 to 4 times. Um, but they gave up quite a bit to Saquon Barkley. So I'm really hoping that we can do some things on the ground,
Yeah.
which will help a
Well,
lot.
and they do a lot of the same stuff we do as far as like outside zone.
Right.
They're a little bit more. They can do a little bit more of like the power football and they're a little bit better just because they're averaging 330 on the offensive line. I think we probably are in the like 310, 315 probably.
Right.
So they're a little bit. They got a little bit more beef up front, but they do a lot of the same stuff with like uh, zone reads, zone runs and things like that. So hearing that, seeing Saquon go off like that, uh, gives me some good feelings going into that game.
Fred says, I think Kurt will get better with Pitts. Breakout game is coming soon. You can see it. And this could be one of those games because the Saints gave up 170 yards to Dallas Goedert.
Yep.
And so if Zach Robinson takes some time to really look at, okay, what did Philly do that was able to get, Dallas Goedert open? And I think it was Ryan Clark and maybe it was Dan Orlovsky, briefly talking about it. They were able to do that by Kyle or Dallas Goedert doing like the tight end things. And so far, the big gains from Pitts has come from him being in a tight end position.
Yep.
So I'm really hoping that they can start, building towards that. Fine. If you want to be, a two tight end team, that's fine. Make that your identity. Keep, Charlie Warner out there for his blocking and occasional catching every now and again. Um, he had, a good game, as far as uh, being that blocking tight end in the Chiefs game. Way better than the Steelers game where he was, messing up his motions and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that they do get Pitts going and London going. Because right now, the best connection so far has been with uh, Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod. And that's because, those guys are a little bit more faster and shiftier in the separating.
Yep.
But that works well with a timing QB, which is what, Kurt is. Kurt's not a, 50-50 ball throwing kind of QB. That's more of your, Baker Mayfields or whatever. That's more of your gunslinger mentality as to where, Kirk Cousins is, I'm throwing to this spot. You should hit your landmark at this, marker and then break to be here. Or, you know what I'm saying? It's more of that kind of uh passer,
Yeah.
which tends to work better with those guys who can, break the guys off a little bit more of a nimble, kind of guy. So, but I need him to get to be more of that throw it up and let, Kyle Pitts or Drake London try to come down with it.
Well, and the good thing is New Orleans. They really, as much as they possibly can, they like to play man coverage.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much a man coverage defense because that allows them to do different things with their, pressure packages, blitzes, things like that. It allows a lot more flexibility there. But that's what killed them with Goddard because like he got 170 yards. A giant chunk of that 170 yards, probably if not 100 yards, it was pretty close to it. Came off of two plays, and it was the exact same play, just ran in different directions.
Right.
Like one was to the right, one was to the left, and it was basically mesh concept because of the man coverage. They ran it like they were supposed to, and they basically had natural picks, and they were able to get him wide open on both of those, especially the second one that went for 60 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But and you had three of the Saints defenders just running into each other. So, like when you have that kind of scenario, um, you know, I think definitely you can start using some of the things that maybe when you look at Kansas City, Kansas City's a lot, probably does a lot more zone, uh, and what have you. So being able to do some of the things that you want to do, then you got to be able to hold on protection to get those meshes to work right. And so far, I think we've been able to, the sacks that we've generally had against him has not been. There's been like one or two times where guys just flat beat their guys right at the snap, and he had no shot.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, it's been he drops back, he's going through his progressions, can't find anybody open, and then it's a coverage sack.
Right.
That's what we've seen most of the time when the sacks have happened. It hasn't been just these snap. Oh crap! It's
Right.
been snap. Let me look around. I can't find anybody, and then he either tries to like run up the middle to try to at least get back to the line of scrimmage, maybe get a couple of yards or whatever, or after 3 or 4 seconds, now he's getting sacked because we just can't find anybody.
Fred, what I was talking about, I ain't talking about straight line speed. I'm talking about that put your foot in the ground and cut a hard 90 to separate from, your defender.
The
And
Edelmans of the world.
right. That's what I'm saying. That's the kind I'm talking about, that shifty. I'm not talking about straight line speed. The straight line speed is great, and he does have that. Like for a tight end, he's probably one of the faster tight ends out there. It's just, I think Kurt, for what at least through 3 games, seems to be more comfortable with the style of a Darnell Mooney and a Ray McLeod. That's what I have seen so far.
Yeah.
Marlon, thank you, sir. This is the draft hat. So, anyway, all right. Somebody, this was earlier on. I wanted to get to it, but I don't know how many of y'all on Twitter, but like, who's bumping Bigelow's new banger? If you, for y'all, like for any of y'all who might know like Bigelow Country, he put out like a diss track for the Saints, and it was hilarious. Y'all
I,
really
I,
need to go. Well,
I saw it, but I have not actually listened to it yet.
Yeah, definitely need to, like, if y'all yeah, I'm sure it's on his YouTube channel, but it was hilarious. I was cackling with that, but yeah, obviously I think this is a winnable game. I feel as good about it as I have about any of these other games we've gone into. I actually feel probably a little bit better as we're starting to see this team finding its groove on offense and finding its identity. Because the one thing that we got to keep in mind as a fan base, is that we're also dealing with a first time play caller. It's something that I'm trying to, remind. We get, especially in the offseason, we got caught up in Zach Robinson was one of the first people to identify, you know, Patrick Mahomes as being a real legitimate talent, and all this other stuff. But like, this is the first time he's called the shots as far as an offense is concerned.
Yep.
So there's going to be, like with anybody, there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some things where he's going to overthink, or he's going to dig his heels in until he learns, get some experience, right? Like, you have a first time play caller in Zach Robinson going against one of the better offensive minds in Andy Reid, and they actually came out pretty similar as far as like when all the dust was settled. Zach Robinson didn't necessarily look outclassed, which for us should be encouraging. Now, do we end up where we want to be this year? Who knows? We'll see. Like, we still got everything in front of us. I don't know if the tough stretch is over, as Fred is alluding to here, but you had a tough 3 games against some really tough teams, but now you're going into a stretch that can be, or it may not be as tough in some aspects, but it is definitely far more important.
Yes.
You have the Saints at home, and then a short week with the Bucks at home.
Yep.
So and then you go to Carolina. You have a 3-game stretch to where you can really start to put some distance between you and the rest of your competition.
Yep. And that, in Carolina, they come out this weekend and basically you
Well,
like
real quick question. Was Bryce the problem? Holy Jesus.
I mean,
Like Andy Dalton
man,
coming out of nowhere dropping 30 something on the Raiders, like on the road dropping 30.
yeah,
Like,
like what
holy
happened?
gee.
It's crazy. But yeah, like I think we are a good enough team that we can play with and win and beat anybody in the league. We just got to learn to finish out. When I say learn to, we already saw that we can do it against a good team like Philadelphia. We did it there. We were on the verge of doing it in Kansas City twice. And yeah, it's just we're this like it really honestly feels like it's just we need that last bit to like click into place, and once we do this offense to me feels like first year Shanahan situation.
That's,
That's
yeah,
that's what this all feels like.
because like you got to remember in a lot of ways, and something I'm trying to tell myself is like you got Kirk Cousins coming off an injury on a new team, learning all new receivers, all
Hmm.
new personnel around him, all new coaching staff, and they're trying to mesh still, which part of that tempered my expectations for this season. If any of y'all remember, like I said, like all I really want is a winning season.
Yeah.
Like we've had 3 7-win seasons in a row. I want a 9-win season. I want to be back in that winning column. Everybody immediately jumps to wanting the NFC South or, the playoffs or the Super Bowl, which is great. Like if we get those, awesome. But that's a lot to ask a whole brand new staff and brand new situation, to produce year one. Um, so hey, these next 3 games is going to tell us a lot about how this season's going to go. Fred's over here predicting 3-0, the ever optimistic Fred. Um, but if we somehow come out of this 3-0, that's going to be huge. That would be
Yeah.
major. And what you did see is like this week, you saw the Saints and the Bucks both come back to earth a little bit.
Yep.
You know, the Bucks got beat by Bo Nix, which I'm surprised Chris ain't even brought up in chat there. He went on the road and beat them in their house. And then obviously the Saints lost in theirs. So uh, hopefully that's a sign of those teams kind of coming back to being what we thought maybe they would be. And hopefully we are, because of being able to contend with the teams that we have contended with, maybe we start coming out better on the other side of that. King 7 says, I just have to say, I think what's wrong with us is we're not a physical enough team. It's like we got the talent, but something's missing. And I think it's the physicality. Um, Maybe on the I don't know, like I really feel like the offense could be a little bit more physical. Right now, the line hasn't played as well as I've hoped they would. But even last year, they kind of started a little slow. It took 3 or 4 games and I really think that, like, haha aside, I really do think that that's the lack of playing in preseason. They need reps to get back into like full swing. We're about to really figure out what Dwayne Ledford's worth now that he's lost 2 starters. Um,
Potentially.
I'm pretty sure McGarry's not going to play this week because he didn't practice today, right? Or was he limited? I have to go back to the.
And
I don't think he practiced today. Uh, let's see. It was who put that out? Josh. There he is, Josh Kendall. He probably did. Practice report. Caleb McGarry did not practice yesterday or today.
okay, so yeah, it'll be
So
Storm Norton.
yeah, it's hard for me to think that he's not. That he's probably not going to play. Now Jake Matthews was out because he is the birth of his second child. Um, but I don't know if y'all noticed, but we re-signed Elijah Wilkerson to the
Yep,
53 man, and we
yep,
brought back Matt Hennessy,
yep.
um, which I think like both of those guys played with Ledford here in Atlanta, so that's some familiarity there. Um, let's see. Yeah, he's talking about like even the run game JR teams have been running down our throat up the middle, which is kind of surprising, right? Because you have Eddie Goldman and Graham and David Onyemata, and like you thought like the middle of this defense was going to be a lot stiffer than it has been, especially with the fact that none of our rookies D linemen that we drafted can have been active so far.
Yeah.
Which I'm giving
Well,
up on that. That looks like
like I'll say this: like you said yes. The Chiefs, did they run it? Yes, they did. Pittsburgh to a certain extent, yeah, but I think both the Pittsburgh and the Philly game was less like if you look at what the actual running backs did. I think we held them in check pretty well. It was the running quarterback that killed us in the passing game. That was
mhm.
not on his designed runs. He had like what 2 or 3 designed runs total.
Yeah,
One of those,
Mahomes wasn't bad.
one of those he got like 3 yards. I'm talking about Hurts.
Oh yeah, Hurts was
He got like 3 yards on one, maybe he got 10 yards on another one. But where he really hurt us was the breakdowns in the passing game. Is what hurt us there. So if we're just talking straight up, hey, we're going to hand the ball off to a running back and what have you. We've been okay, like not as good as we were, I think, last year or last couple of years, really. But we've been, we don't because this year we don't have Calais Campbell, and I really wish we would have figured out a way to bring him back. I really, really do.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, I I think when we're talking about the run game against running backs, I think we've been pretty good about keeping them in check. It's been mostly the guys getting free in the passing game and killing us there, which has just been it's a headache for anybody in the league. It doesn't matter if it's the Falcons. I mean, that's running quarterbacks when things are going right for them, like can really just demoralize you as a fan and demoralize you as a defense because you do everything right. You cover up all the receivers. You maybe even get good pressure on him, and then he somehow escapes, and now he's down the field for 20 yards. God bless
Mhm.
him. It's like we did everything right, and we just missed him by like this much, maybe. And now it's first down, and it's just it sucks. That is what it does. But I think just straight running backs, I think we've been okay handling that.
Although, like, I tend to agree here. Like, it's like he's saying, Rook should be playing. He's the second round pick, and then Chris is saying we want Dorless. I'll say this: even if they didn't get like a ton of snaps, I would just like to see them like not be inactive. Like that kind of bugs me. As a like from a team building standpoint, and I know like from the coach's standpoint, hey, we got we got Graham and we got Goldman and you got Anyamata and you got Contavia Street and
Taquan
you
Graham
know,
has looked good too, by the way.
yeah, Graham's looked good and Goldman's looked good much to my chagrin and but you still like you spent capital on these guys.
Yeah,
And I think at some point they need to be active on game day to start getting some reps and start getting some work. But that
Like I
You got
honestly
a
think
different
I,
crew.
I I saw somebody tweet this out, and I agree with this. But again, we don't know, what's going on in the classrooms. We don't know what's going on at practice. All those things that we don't get to see. So, I'm not going to sit here and say I know better than the coaches. But
I do.
what I
I'm
would
kidding.
what I would like to see is, um, Rook be activated this week, and maybe Contavious Street is a guy because he's just kind of been just a guy so far this year. So maybe you put Rook in there, but and see what you get. Um,
Yeah. I mean, and
so,
it could be a trust issue, as far as like, um, yeah, he may be like just a guy, but um, maybe he's holding his assignments better. I don't know. It's a curious thing because every time I see it, I try to refrain from making a snarky comment about the 2024 draft class because right now the only one who's getting snaps is Bergeron. Like Casey Washington has been active, but he's not like he's gotten any targets or anything like that. He's probably playing on special teams. I think
yeah.
Bertrand's had one defensive snap. Everything else has been on special teams. So it's very much an old school mindset, um, as far
Look,
as like earning their playing time, I guess.
and look, I will say this: like, if the guys in practice are legitimately showing that they're the ones that should be active, then by all means. Right now, do I think um, it hurts the rookies to not play immediately? Uh, I don't necessarily think so. I think that the jump from in with rare exceptions, the jump, especially on the defensive line, especially on the interior defensive line, rookies by and large, unless you're talking about like the Aaron Donalds of the world and those guys, they don't generally make a huge impact day one, game one of
Well,
their
yeah, no,
NFL
obviously, yeah.
career. So at the end of the day, would I like to see them out there? Sure. Does it? Is it like a heartbreaking for me to not see them out? No, let them develop if they're if they're on whatever development plan they're on and they're on schedule for that. Then whatever that is, let them do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how it all pans out by the end of the year.
He's talking about, he said, King says he thinks AJ needs to be more physical. I don't know, man. He was hemming up Rasheed Rice on a handful of plays, like especially that one where he caught, like, diagnosed the plays and took him down in the backfield. Like that
Yeah,
was like he was a heat seeking missile on that one.
like but that's the thing that a team like the Kansas City Chiefs will do. The Kansas City Chiefs will take a guy like a Rasheed Rice, and they're not going to just say, "Hey, you're the Z, and you're going
Oh
to be
yeah,
over
yeah. No,
here
they're
all the time." They move him all over the place, and I think a lot of the times when he was getting, he was going up against like Alford, which Alford's good, but I mean he's technically he's the guy you want on like their third receiver,
right.
and we don't do matchup stuff that often because we do a lot of zone anyways. So at the end of the day, like it's just when AJ was on him, he was doing a good job, but he wasn't on him the whole game. So
Mm-hmm. Yep.
great. And Fred says Grady should be in the middle. Like Grady's not big enough. Like he's not. He's
You want Grady in the
like
middle on a passing play, like.
Grady doesn't have enough ass. Like that's what it basically
Well, I
boils
mean,
down to.
he's a penetrating three tech. That's what he's always been.
Exactly.
When he's been forced to play nose, in different schemes or in, it's not always as productive, which is why you have, Onyemata and Eddie Goldman and
Yeah.
those guys to eat up blocks a little better, and you play Grady. Uh, I get what they're saying as far as like don't necessarily want to see Grady as a true end. I want him being that penetrating three tech, shooting in between the gaps between the guard and the center or the guard and the tackle. I'm not trying to have him go around the tackle. So,
Now,
but
I'll say this: this game against the Saints, if the Falcons defense can continue to do what they've done most of the season, and that is limit the big plays, like keep them from getting the big explosive plays, and we can, for the most part, corral the run game. Like, don't let it get out of hand and just completely overwhelm you. As long as we can do that, the biggest difference between a team like the Saints and a team like Kansas City is you could play that deep, and we did. We played really good defensively of not giving up big plays. We didn't give up like big, huge plays down the field. But what happened was you have Mahomes, who's the best quarterback in the league right now, and he's a guy that he'll like if you're going to give him like the 3-step boom, get it out of my hands, and you're going to give him that all day long, he will take it all day long. Now you go back a couple of years, like 2-3 years, if you did that to him, he may have gotten a little impatient and tried to force something to maybe like Tyreek or something like that, and that's where he would run into trouble in the past. Now he's learned, like, I'm just going to, if that's what you're going to give me, I'm going to take it. And if I do see an opening, then I'll take it. But if I don't see one, I'm just going to go boop, 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 boop. We're going to dink and dunk, and we're going to run the ball, and we're going to march our way down the field. And he's a guy that can stay that course the entire time. Do I think Derek Carr is that same kind of guy?
that's what I was going to say. If you put him, if they can get it to in Derek Carr's hand 39 times, Derek Carr is going to give you the ball. He's going to make some mistakes. He's not because Derek Carr is wanting. I'm trying to go back to look at like the Saints when they played Dallas, right? Which was the big holy crap. They killed Dallas, which was a big shocker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Crap. I wanted that. What the? I just had it pulled up. Why did it go away? That's what I wanted. All right, team stats. So Derek Carr, Derek Carr in that game. You want to guess how many times he threw the ball?
I guess like
they scored 44 points. Keep that in mind.
I'm going to say like 20 to 22, something there.
16 times.
Yep, that makes sense.
16 times, had 11 completions, and still threw a pick. Okay. What killed the Cowboys is they couldn't stop the run at all with Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams both. Like we have to get the ball into Carr's hands. Because as somebody said earlier, I think it was Chris talking about, need to apologize to Mike Hughes. Yeah, Mike Hughes has played really well on the outside, opposite to AJ Terrell. And if we can bottle up the run, because it gave New Orleans fits, that Fangio defense. And guess what? That's kind of what we run. We run that same style of defense, here in Atlanta. So with that being said, if we can bottle up the run and put it in Derek Carr's hands, I think we got a real good shot at winning the game.
Yeah, because like I said, that was the key to beating. Like if we're talking inside of our division, for a long time, that was the key to beating Cam Newton.
Yep,
that was the key to beating Drew Brees. That was key to beating quite a lot of the guys. It was the problem we ran into was we gave up too many big plays for a long time. But like with Drew Brees, outside of like maybe the last handful of years that he was in the league, a lot of the times he didn't want to dink and dunk his way down the field. He wanted quick strike. He wanted chunks. He wanted to go down the field. And if you could force him, he might do it early, where he would dink and dunk you down the field before his arms started to go downhill. Like you could get him to, if he would be patient for like a quarter and a half, maybe even an entire half. But then that second half, at some point he was going to just be like, I can't. It would drive him nuts. He would start to throw down the field, and when he started to throw down the field, that's when you could get him. If you were playing sound on your back end, and that's a lot of times how you beat guys that are that like to throw it downfield, like Derek Carr. Derek Carr loves to do it. He's got a really good arm,
Yeah.
and he can throw it downfield. The biggest thing though is you look at Arthur Smith out, and you say what you want, but Arthur Smith went into that game. He's like, I am not throwing in the middle of the field. I am not letting those safeties bust my game up. And you can say what you want. Justin Fields did this and that and the other. And I'm not saying Justin Fields is any great shakes or anything, but he stayed to the outsides, didn't go deep, and they let their defense wait for him. If Derek Carr can get that same kind of mentality, then I think the Saints are a much tougher team. But I don't think Derek Carr can do that. And I'm not sure that the offense in general, like if you can keep them and make them have to work anywhere from 8 to 12 plays to get down that field and possibly score, then I think you're more often than not, you're going to get stops. More often than not, you're going to get turnovers because they're just not patient. And Carr is just not that kind of guy. He wants to throw it downfield. He knows he can throw it downfield. He's got the arm to throw it downfield. And he's got receivers that are speedy that can get there. But we've got two badass safeties that if he's not careful, will ruin his day.
Yep. And that's exactly what I'm hoping for.
And that's what we got to do. We got to stop the run, or at least contain the run, and make it like if they're going to run, they're going to have to run all the way down the field, or they're going to have to dink and dunk all the way down the field. And at some point, he's going to become impatient and feel like I can get this. This shot's I'm going to take the shot because it's there.
Yep.
I can make it happen. He's going to throw it up there, and somebody's going to get it off.
Yep, agreed. All right, folks. Well, I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Y'all hope y'all enjoy the. It's going to be a banger of a game tonight, Dallas versus the Giants.
The way Dallas has been playing,
who knows, right?
Yeah.
But anyway,
that Giants defense is for real.
Yeah. We'll be back on Tuesday to talk about this Saints game. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a win.
We'll see. Will we have power then? Will I still be in Oz, or will I have been able to click my shoes and get back home? Who knows?
Well, I'll be clicking away, my friend. As always, folks, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grimm1128. That's GRIMM1128. Jonathan.
At Jonathan M. Holder. Come by, say hi.
There you go. As always, Falcons fans, rise up. Y'all stay safe out there. For the ones who are in the path of this hurricane, y'all keep your heads down, stay safe, and we'll see y'all again on Tuesday. Peace.
Rise up, folks.